Welcome to Sustainability Solved, where we help businesses reduce their impact. I work for 51 to Carbon Zero, a mission-driven climate and sustainability partner that combines AI with deep expert advisory services. We help medium and large enterprises future-proof against climate and sustainability risk, building lasting environmental and stakeholder capital, and contribute meaningfully to the well-being of the planet and the communities in which they operate. Thank you. So we recorded this last summer when I was working for Green Element, and it's taken a wee bit of time for us to bring out. Thank you to Sam, who helped bring this back. Sam ran Soundquake, our production services. And so I'm now going to introduce, 6 months later, Charlie, my wonderful co-host, and ask him how he's doing.
It's good. It's good. I tell you what's a bit arresting is that as of Saturday, I think the days start getting shorter, which is a bit worrying.
Well, you're full of good news, aren't you?
No,
full of positive news.
Someone told me this morning. I was like, oh man, but the weather's been fantastic, and it's going to be sunny all week, so everything's good.
Good. And welcome to the show, both David and Lawrence.
Hi guys, great to join you guys. Thanks very much for having us.
Now, I'm really excited to have you both on the show, largely because I've recently just joined you on your board, and I've learnt so much about what you do and how you do it. And it is a brilliant, brilliant organisation. And we're talking about SCARF here. So could you, in your words, tell us a bit about SCARF and what it is that you do?
Yeah, sure. So SCARF, we're actually, it's quite timely to have this opportunity today because we're actually in our 40th year of being a registered charity and social enterprise. And our objectives, I guess, focus around reducing fuel poverty, improving energy efficiency, and supporting people getting access to information, advice and support, ranging from general energy efficiency advice through to getting funding for improvement measures within domestic and business properties.
Brilliant. Thank you. David, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I think we have, our principles are really like engraved in supporting households with the information. Okay. Yeah, just to kind of echo exactly what Lawrence said there around our kind of purpose and a goal. It's really to provide the conduit for households that could be really struggling with energy costs and in their current situation around crisis in the home to help them out of that and to have a more sustainable lifestyle. So I think for us it's very fundamental that who we are and what we do is very much about the impact on the coalface.
Okay.
And how much support do you get from the Scottish Government as an organisation?
Yeah, we are the primary deliverer of the Home Energy Scotland programme in the northeast of Scotland. So we, on behalf of the Energy Saving Trust and Scottish Government, we have around about 30 to 35 employees who provide direct advice or support for the northeast of Scotland, which is ultimately that kind of area in Scotland from Perth and Kinross up to Murray. So it's a substantial amount of homes and a substantial amount of target audience that we look to provide the ultimate wraparound support. Ultimately as well, it's kind of like a giant funnel to support the local council programmes that we deliver also. So it funnels everything through that kind of pipeline to provide base telephone support, but then really in-depth in-home advice around tailored support to try and eradicate personal fuel poverty and maximise the household income.
And how many houses a year do you touch?
So the organisation's probably split into two main areas of service provision, as David commented there. In terms of the Home Energy Scotland programme, it's primarily a remote based service, call centre based approach, although there are opportunities for specialist advisors to go and visit homeowners or tenants in their properties to give them more direct face-to-face support. So in terms of engagement there, we're probably looking in excess, unique engagements in excess of 20,000 per annum, probably unique interventions, unique engagements. That remote approach is also supported by our Home Energy Advice Team, or HEAD is the acronym. And that differs from the Home Energy Scotland service in terms of it's more tailored to specific household circumstances, and the advice team will go out and visit properties on a face-to-face basis, be able to do a visual assessment, which can often lead to better outcomes, because you can see things, maybe for example where a property is experiencing damp and condensation, an advisor will visually be able to see this and identify that and give more tailored advice to the household. In terms of the home visits, as we call them for the HEAT team, in the last 12 months we probably did in excess of 4,000, between 4,000 and 5,000 unique home visits.
That's extraordinary. Lawrence, can I just ask you, I think you're slightly hitting the table when you're talking, and it's just your camera is slightly twisted round. So two things. One, could you just slightly pull the camera back the other way? Perfect. And if you try not to sort of hit the table, I know it's very hard to do. I do apologise. Just thank you very much. Yeah, exactly. Hands in the air. Keep it working.
Yeah, we're getting a little bit of feedback when you were kind of talking there.
All of us, or
just there when you're talking.
Just me.
And me.
Yeah.
Okay, that's annoying.
Someone's too close.
But we're not hearing that, so the recording won't be hearing that. So I know it's distracting. So you touch between 20,000 through that one stream and 4,000 or 5,000 through the other stream. What would be the typical solutions, outcome, and reduction in energy consumption that these households might expect?
Yeah, so in terms of the general objective is we're talking about fuel poverty or fuel poor households in particular. If the definition being if a household is spending more than 10% of its income after rent, etc., mortgage, etc., that would be defined as being a household who is fuel poor or suffering fuel poverty. So what our objective as an organisation is to remove people from that position. So essentially to ensure that or facilitate them in reducing their energy or utility spend to 10% or as low a percentage as possible. So that would be a typical KPI for any of our funders that they would be measuring the impact of SCARF's intervention in terms of the fuel spend. So that's one metric or one key KPI. Another example may be through some of our schemes is support householder with improving the energy efficiency of their property through retrofit insulation or potentially installation of renewable technologies, and therefore ultimately the objective there is to improve the EPC rating of the property. So that's another example of a metric that we would be measured on by our funders.
And so what number of households do you actually sort of enact these solutions on a year? If you're talking to 20,000, how many people actually do things and get these kind of reductions?
Yeah, I guess it would be difficult to look at to kind of give you that number for the whole organisation right now. But if we take one of our schemes that we run, for example, our Eco4 Flex programme, which we facilitate on behalf of a number of local authorities. I think 9 local authorities now across Scotland that we facilitate this scheme for. And for the duration of the scheme, which is since its inception as Eco 3, it's evolved into Eco 4 currently. We're talking at probably over 4,000 measures have been installed at an average of maybe four measures per property. So over 1,000 properties have benefited from either retrofit installation or renewable technology installs. And that it's averaged, so we're currently almost recording about £20 million of private investment has come in through the scheme that we have been responsible for facilitating. And that's an average of £18,000 to £20,000 of work per property. And this work has been no cost to the homeowner themselves because they've met the eligibility criteria that the scheme runs via.
And do you go back maybe 2 years' time and see what the impact of the work that you've done is?
Yes, on some occasions we do, depending on how the householder would like to engage. Okay, yep. Sorry, 2 seconds. On some occasions we go back depending on the engagement from the household. The statistics that we're recording has a annual saving that's generated by the EPC saving. So what we are kind of looking at is the average lifetime CO2 saving of a project, and then look at the lifetimes of the measures, and then that gives us the calculation of the CO2 saving for that period of time.
Because it'd be interesting to see, wouldn't it? Because each house will have slightly nuanced different like insulation or building structure, etc. But then equally you'll be putting in different things as well. So and I know the answers, we haven't got this because we just don't have enough money to be able to put it, but how much better would it be for us to be able to look at all the projects we do and go, that's worked really well for that, that's worked really well for that, that's et cetera, and then we can be really specific with knowing exactly what it is that we're doing for each of these households.
I think this is where the before and after data logging element of it would really kind of support these kind of programs, because you've got the behaviour change, you've got a person living in the home, how they behave is very unique to each home. And then understanding the impact of the measure along with the behaviour change advice. So kind of logging and experiencing the kind of information that's received from both parts is critical. But I think as well, that's something that we need to be working towards as an industry.
Yeah.
Do you do any sort of quality of life analysis as well? Because I know that there was some really interesting research in Wales about the impact of poor quality housing on their economy. And obviously there's money spent on fuel that, extra energy that you don't need to spend. There's money spent on refurbishing and repairing buildings that are damp and cold. They fall apart quicker. But there was also a load of evidence that there was a huge amount of money spent on the NHS, on additional social services costs because people are ill and unhappy and not working to their potential. It gets into it starts off very technical, but there is a huge element of it which is about people and society, isn't it? I mean, do you get any insights into the kind of social benefit that you're providing?
Yeah, for some of our programs, we do actually generate what we call post installation social surveys, if you like. So we will talk to the householder before they've had any work done in their property. It'll be quite basic questions around temperature in the home, how they've generally been feeling, maybe their own health conditions, without going into too much depth of detail. And then we revisit the property probably anything between 6 and 12 months after they've had work done, and we go through the survey again, and then we report that to the funders directly, and then information for many of the programmes will then be forwarded back to Scottish Government in some cases, because if they are the original funder.
Yeah, and we have delivered programmes in the past focusing on COPD against readmission rates, and we ultimately a couple of years ago we paid the energy bills for around 450 homes in Aberdeen with COPD sufferers, working with NHS Grampian to look at a kind of cost benefit analysis of prevention rather than continuing to battle the reoccurrence of COPD in the cold seasons. So that report ultimately ended up through one of our partners, Catapult, ended up at Westminster going through the process to be considered as a potential programme for government to look at prevention, because I think we all kind of realise that we can't keep doing things the same way. Things really need to change. So I think we're really trying to get to the forefront of making change, and I think that's a big thing of what SCARF is here to do, is to facilitate a different way of doing things.
Okay. And what were some of the main issues that SCARF identifies when it comes to energy efficiency across Scotland?
I think in the main, you would probably have to say it's the property fabric. Given the high level of granite built, stone built properties with solid walls, and retrofit insulation becomes a little bit harder and more expensive to apply.
Yeah, I think that, as well as the type of heating system homes have, because if you're on a gas boiler, you're looking at 6 pence per kilowatt. If you're with an electric heating system, you're looking at 28 pence for the same level of heating. So a lot of the fuel poor households in Scotland find themselves having electric heating, which ultimately means they're penalised because the cost of electricity is almost 5 times as great as the cost of gas.
But that's not including air source heat pumps, which obviously have a COP of sort of 3 or 4, don't they? So you get that bit more towards parity. But I do think there is a general misconception that low carbon heating is low cost heating, and it's not always the truth, is it?
Completely, and I think that's why for us, when we do our eco programs, we're really keen to look at solar PV to try and offset the air source heat pump, again, as well as a completely well insulated property, where we wouldn't consider putting an air source heat pump in a property that is not kind of very well insulated.
Because I think it's really interesting that the sustainability side, and there's, I think there's been such a focus on the sort of ecological side of sustainability, if you know what I mean, the planetary side of sustainability. And actually, it feels to me like there's two very distinct actions. There's a social sustainability and there's a sort of environmental sustainability. And without both of them, we won't get a just transition, and we'll lose the room. And I feel like in the UK, I think actually across the Western world, the sort of focus on sustainability has been so much about the environmental that I don't think we've told the sort of social sustainability side of it, which is why we're getting the pushback on the low carbon agenda potentially, or might be one of the mitigating circumstances. So it's fantastic that you're really front and center is the impact on people. Health, well-being, happiness, and I think that's such an important message we need to share, isn't it? That sustainable, just transition is about that at its core.
Yeah, and I think that's the other key thing. It's looking at putting the people forward, right, and doing it in a correct process. Like for us, we realise that the transition has to happen to some form of electric heating or an alternative to gas. So it wouldn't make sense to look at the people in fuel poverty just now, to look at them as the primary people to receive the kind of green heating system, when we know all that would do was exacerbate the situation. So I think for us, like Lawrence said, with the eco programme that SCARF deliver, we really are looking at the E, F and G properties, which are the hardest and most expensive properties to heat.
So that's the EPCs of E, F and G, yeah. So really poor performance.
Yeah. So even if we are putting an electric heating system and taking out gas, then the bills are highly likely to be less anyway, because it's such a poor performing property that we're currently looking at as well. So I think it is about the transition and getting the people who can afford just now to do the transition, but also to start picking off the hardest to treat, most expensive to treat properties in the UK.
Because we've run a similar programme in our village. We got money from the Labour government, the last Labour government, 2009, and we started a rolling refurbishment fund, and we've done about 60 houses out of 700 now. But it's been incredibly hard after we've got the people that are interested, if you know what I mean, the 60. We can't seem to get to people to get them to work with us to make their houses better. I mean, what are the barriers to getting people to sort of get on this journey?
I think there's still right at the front end. There's still a lack of awareness, across householders of what type of support is there, and if they know what type of support's available, sometimes they don't know who to talk to, to get that support. So for us, we still see, although we've been in and around the Northeast for 40 years, we still find one of the challenges being just a lack of awareness around, what's available and then who to talk to about it. And if you're talking about fuel poverty as well, which, the fuel poverty and energy efficiency of a property, carbon reduction, they're all intrinsically linked, and one obviously impacts the other directly. So if you're looking at it from a fuel poverty aspect, there's still, there's a high level of stigma around just poverty in general. So, people can often be resistant or hesitant to reach out, to organisations like ourselves. So those I would consider to be barriers, to what can happen. But in terms of the renewables, for example, the barriers still remain, like from a supply chain perspective, the installation costs of heat pumps and thereafter the running costs of heat pumps are not aligned with supporting people who are trying to improve the energy efficiency of their property to reduce their spend on their energy bill. So there's a kind of quite a clear contradiction there.
I think the kind of other barrier as well is sometimes the schemes seem too good to be true for people. Because to give you an idea of the SCARF programme there, we're looking at an £19,000 spend on a property with either little or no customer contribution at all. So when that kind of opportunity or proposal comes forward, it does feel like there's some things attached to, and I think as well, the people have been used to of the amount of scam that's been out there for not just this, but generally. So I think everybody goes into everything just on a basis, rightfully so just now, of this does sound too good to be true, what's the catch, or is this something I need to be wary of? So engagement can be difficult because sometimes the offer does look too good to be true.
And do you think that you're hearing a lot about this, and I'm going to put in inverted commas up, right-wing rhetoric that goes on at the moment of anti-climate change stuff? Do you think that plays into some of those barriers, or do you feel that actually isn't there and it really is rhetoric on the right wing?
That's quite a difficult question to answer, because we do a lot of our programs focused on local authority homes, where the home improvement fabric element of it is up to the local authority, not necessarily the household. Right. But I think for us as well, though, we've never been as busy for renewables, for inquiries and for people looking to do that. So I think there is particularly where we are, there's a particular draw towards it. And I would kind of hope that people are expecting that this journey to net zero that we're on will continue, and we'll get behind it. But again, for us to get to the kind of momentum that's required, like Lawrence says, it needs to be really put into turbo for it to actually achieve net zero. Whereas just now we're still working with the low hanging fruit of people who are really keen to do things.
Gotcha.
And if you're delivering this in the north east of Scotland, who's delivering it in other parts of Scotland, and who's delivering it in UK, England, Wales, more widely?
Well, again, it's all kind of separated on different organisations. So the picture in Scotland currently just now for the Home Energy Scotland programme, SCARF does the North East of Scotland, and you have Changeworks, the organisation who does Edinburgh Central Belt and Highlands. We have the WISE Group who cover Glasgow Strathclyde, and Energy Agency who cover Ayrshire in that part of Scotland. The local authority picture is very much depending on if the local authority want to use one of these organisations, including ourselves, do it themselves, or use local community organisations, which are all available. I'm not aware of a similar programme like Home Energy Scotland like functioning in the rest of the UK, and I believe that the local authorities are quite a fragmented area down in England.
I mean, this seems to me a big part of the problem. In the UK, we've tried in England, we tried the Green Homes grant, and I mean, there's been a series of very badly handled. I think not even my words. I think the Office of Budget Responsibility said like complete failures, like monumental failures to try and implement and wind this up. So, what are you doing right that that England can't get it right?
I think for us, like we come from a very like nobody works for a charity to get rich. We're never driven by funds. It's all about impact. And I think we take on new projects or we take on our existing programs thinking, okay, what kind of legacy can we leave? How can we help people on an individual basis rather than a locality basis? So I think for us, it's very much built into why we do things, why we're here. And if we take care of the people and treat them with respect and go down that route and provide the advice that we can, it really works and makes an impact. And we are aware, and we spend the time and energy to be aware of any UK schemes, Scottish schemes, private equity schemes, so we can provide that kind of one point or one-stop shop for people to get the appropriate advice. So I think for us, we are 40, it's taken about 40 years to get to exactly where we are just now. It's been a journey, but it's been extremely successful the full time that we've been functioning.
So you're saying private equity. So you get private equity organisations giving money for these for this work, and is that carbon offsetting money or ESG money? Where's that money coming from? Why are they doing it?
Yeah, so the majority, when we talk about private equity, the majority is through Ofgem's energy redress programme. So I think the criteria for being part of that programme is that the energy supplier, EDF for example, if they have over 250,000 customers, then they are obligated to comply with Ofgem's legislations. And also, so what they've got, there's two elements to how the fund is generated. One is through fines imposed by Ofgem through non-conformance or breaches by these larger suppliers. The second is they are obligated to put a percentage of surplus back into the pockets of those most vulnerable homes or properties in the regions. So what happens at the moment is there are kind of two parts to this. The Ofgem Energy Redress Fund opens up currently once every quarter can be a significant amount of money, millions, tens of millions of pounds. And organisations like ourselves are able to apply for funding to deliver programmes, which are the kind of main criteria is that they are related to energy efficiency and energy efficiency improvement / fuel poverty. We've been successful in applying for funding, really successful actually over the last 4 to 5 years. The second part is though with the Eco4 Flex, which is the one that is returning the really significant numbers. So for example, the 4,000 installation measures, 1,000 properties, average spend of £20,000 per property. Again, that's money that's coming directly into that particular programme from the larger energy companies themselves, the SSEs, the EDFs, the E.ONs, etc. So that's largely where the private or the route the private equity money comes in currently.
And do you think this is part of the problem that we've got such a fragmented delivery system for this? It's a national challenge, isn't it? The 27 million houses or whatever it is in the UK that basically 90%, 95% of them need a full deep retrofit by 2050. Yet it still feels like, I mean, you've mentioned 5 or 6 organisations in Scotland alone trying to deliver it. In the UK, who knows really what's going on down here? But is that part of the issue that we need to actually learn from the best practices of the people like you are doing and roll that out at speed and at scale?
Yeah, I think so, and I think one of the key things about what is particularly done in Scotland is the regionality of things. So the people that are doing the support and advice are in the same locations as the people requesting it. So they understand the homes, they understand their community, they understand how to break barriers and engage. So I think for us, it's kind of what's happening in Scotland replicated across the UK would definitely push in the right direction, because it would be local people supporting local delivery and local impact, which just now, for example, if it was a call to one organisation, say in England, say in Manchester, you lose the local feel, you lose the local understanding, you lose the local outreach. So for me, the regionalised support goes a long way to removing the barriers that we discussed earlier.
Yeah, I can see that. You can see that because of the different architecture that you've got throughout the whole of the UK, and having moved up here from, say, London, the architecture is different, and you can see the housing fabric is different. And if you're dealing with someone in London, helping someone in, say, Aberdeen, they wouldn't have a clue what the granite, how it feels, what it feels like to live in that house.
Yeah. I think as well, the actual environmental conditions are massively different between, say, take Portsmouth and then look at like Aberdeen or Murray, or the conditions are extremely difficult from the top point of Scotland to the south of England. And I think an example of that was when the financial aid came, when the energy bills went over £2,500 average household. The people in the most comfortable living conditions in the south were getting the same amount as people who are living in the hardest conditions on the Highlands and Islands. So and there is your problem. It needs to be looked at very, very closely and specifically rather than generalised.
So can we just go back a bit and talk a bit about the main and the most effective actions that you take when you're working with a house? And what are the low-hanging fruit? What's the sort of the sequence of decision making that you go through when you look at a property, and what actions do you tend to implement?
Well, I think starting with we talk about kind of low cost or no cost measures is just the behavioural advice, the general energy efficiency. People leaving lights on, leaving appliances on standby, filling their kettle for one cup of tea. That's always our starting point, because these are the things that can be implemented immediately and have no cost, to the homeowner. And then we begin to build up and look at, what, the physical improvements could be. So looking at the fabric of the property, or the type or level of insulation in a property. And again, you build it up. We've got like what we call low cost or soft measures, which are draft excluder tape, letterbox covers, these types of things, radiator reflector foils. And we often are able, we have a team of advisors who can go into a property, and through funding that we have access to, we can actually install these low or no cost measures free of charge to the homeowner. So that's the starting point, and then we can then build up. Then we look at the larger physical improvements that could be made, and that could be loft cavity, wall insulation, or the installation of maybe solar panels or heat pumps, and so we the low hanging fruit is what we look at first. As I said, the behavioural advice, the softer measures, insulation measures, and then we build up from there and try and give that whole house approach, because we could go into a property and they may be eligible for retrofit insulation, but if their behaviours, if their energy behaviours are not disciplined and not focused in the right areas, they're not maximising the benefit of the physical improvements that they are maybe able to receive.
I think as well, it's very much a tailored approach, like Lawrence said there, and we will look at the household situation, we will look at their income and expenditure. Because everything that we do as an organisation works to the Scottish Government fuel poverty definition. So we will look at the definition in regards to how far into fuel poverty they are. And then we'll look at expenditure and income that is going out of the household. And then we may look at the person's situation around any additional benefits that's been claimed or not been claimed. So it's very much a person-centric, tailored approach to look at the individual behaviours and, like Lawrence said, the fabric of the property.
And do you do this service for businesses? Because the big energy consumers, business premises. Do you also operate that in that arena?
As part of our programme that we deliver for Energy Saving Trust, we also deliver in the northeast of Scotland, Business Energy Scotland, which is, again, it's a Scottish Government programme that looks at businesses can engage and get a report done on their premise to look at ways to make it more efficient, reduce costs, reduce carbon. We also run programmes for some local authorities from UK shared prosperity funding, which allows us to give grant funding out to businesses. Particularly just now we're running one in Aberdeen where we look at a business who may want a £10,000 grant to match fund to look at improving the energy efficiency of the property. And we're currently running that at the moment. Most local authorities that have been provided with that fund can look at delivering programmes like that to businesses in their locality.
And what are the kind of outcomes from focusing on business premises? What kind of savings do you get, in a typical case? Yeah,
it's too vast to say. It's one of the big programmes that was funded by Aberdeen City Council this year was a solar hub on the top of a storage den, which ultimately powered electric bus, the bus centre in Aberdeen to take trips up and down the coast. So it can have long-lasting impacts. However, we get inquiries like that, but we also make it a nail technician or we make it a corner shop. So it's so varied on organisations. And we can say as well, particularly in Aberdeen, a lot of organisations are really keen to looking at minimum standards, looking at how they can save by implementing renewables.
It's fascinating listening to you and what it is that SCARF has achieved. And I think one of the things that has struck me from working and more closely with SCARF is how well run it is and how good you are actually at delivering what it is that you deliver. And you can see that not just from listening to you, but also the reputation that you have around Scotland. I guess this is a bit of an unfair question, but how can we take that great running and move it across the UK as a whole? Have you got any ideas on what that could look like?
To be cheeky, if a local authority in England want to engage us around programmes, we'd be more than happy to look at it.
Did you hear that, local councils? Yeah. Get on the phone to SCARF. These guys know what they're doing.
I think there is, although it's a joke, there is something in the blueprint that we've created and we've developed over time that is very successful, and we are seeing some great results. So I think for us, it's great being chief executive of a charity, but we still very much get a number of frontline experiences ourselves, and we get to see the impact of what we're doing, because ultimately the key driver for myself and Lawrence, we're very like-minded, is all about impact, and the amount of positive stories we hear, the amount of case studies that we get, and even letters thanking us for a great service or changing people's lives through actually giving them a home that they can be warm in is massive.
Okay, so here's a question for you, but both of you need to answer this. What if you were to try and describe SCARF to someone through a case study or through something positive that's happened that you've seen or heard, what is the story that you would say to that person?
In case of a specific example.
Yeah, case study, exactly, a case study.
Yeah, okay, so I'll kick off with this one. So I was picking up my grandson from primary school a couple of months ago, and I bumped into a young mum who was also picking up one of her children, because I'm just a generation above them, of course. But, so she was picking up and we used to work together probably about 15 years ago at another organisation. And she said to me, "Oh, where do you work now?" I said, "Oh, I work with Scarf." And she goes, "Scarf, the energy people?" I says, "Yeah." She goes, "Wow," she says, "you won't believe what happened to me after I had a visit from a Scarf advisor." And I says, "Go on, tell me then." So she, her and her family, two young children and her husband, live in a property in Inverurie. They've never had central heating in the property. They used to carry portable electric heaters around whichever room they would be congregating in. So she reached out to Scarf. She got a visit from one of our home energy advice team. They evaluated and made a referral because they believed she was eligible to get funding through the ECO programme. So the advisor made the referral. One of our contractors came out, did the technical survey, and she was eligible. So she got first time central heating and retrofit insulation for her property at no cost to her at all. And her youngest daughter is actually asthmatic. So the difference that this has made to their lives as a family, and to her daughter in particular, she just couldn't kind of really describe it. She kind of kindly agreed to be part of a case study which we took forward, and that's the kind of story for me that's kind of like, and the jobs we talk about what works for Scarf. I think it's because we have people who are dedicated, they're passionate. We are headquartered in a part of the world which is heavily, private sector energy. As a third sector organisation, we often struggle with being competitive with, maybe the financial elements, but we enhance our other terms and conditions as much as we possibly can to try and be competitive. And the level of job satisfaction that people within our organisations get and comment on is really the thing. And we've got a very, very low turnover of staff for the type of organisation we are and where we're located, especially. But it's that element of the doing
Brilliant.
something, seeing it through, and being able to look at it and say, I made the difference here.
That's a wonderful story. So now, David, you need to top that one.
Yeah, well, my one was, this is when I first joined Scarf. So I've been at Scarf for 9 years now. I come from the private sector, I actually came as a manager on a maternity contract, just maternity cover. But I kind of got the bug, and now, like 9 years later, I'm still here. When I first joined Scarf, women in her 80s contacted us. Went out to her home and had a look around the house, and she had no heating or hot water, and it had been like that for 2 years. This was in Angus, so it'd been like that for 2 years. And we said, okay, look, why didn't you get in touch with us sooner? We could have done something here, because I think for us it's like, how do we move things along quickly? So we asked the question, and the response was, my husband said he was going to do it. And this period lasted for about 2 years. Ultimately, the husband passed away due to natural causes. And then that got left in our own hands, and so she contacted us. So within 3 weeks, the first time we went round, we had a look at it. We provided temporary heating measures, so plug-in electric heating. We provided our access to water. And then within that 3 week period, that we were able to get somebody out there to go and look at our system and then basically replace our complete heating system. So we left her with hot water running, heating, in a situation that she shouldn't have been living in, but wasn't looking for support. So I think for me, it was just the fact that we left away with somebody whose life's completely changed and transformed and able to live a comfortable life. And I think the big thing you learn with Scarf as well is you think these are one-offs, but there is so much of this happening in the UK that is just, people don't want to ask for help or support, and people just get by. When the reality is, there's organisations like ourselves there's Citizen Advice Bureau, there's other organisations that people should proactively feel encouraged to engage. It's not a stigma to be struggling. Just please, if there is like anything like that, there is organisations out there to help.
Yeah.
But it's also this sort of defrayed costs model, isn't it? That it's kind of the fact that we're not tackling it systemically in England specifically sounds like you're much better in Scotland. But those costs, like you mentioned, the child with the asthma. Well, I mean, there's a lot of pressure on the NHS because of that. People with certainly a lot of bronchitis, respiratory diseases, black mold in buildings causing significant health and immune reactions. And this costs the state an enormous amount of money. And then you spend all the energy and the buildings fall apart quicker. It just strikes me that there is just an incredible amount of stuff on the right side of the scales that this should be a national priority. And it hasn't been, I don't think, certainly not in England. No. So I think, UK local authorities give SCARF a call.
Yeah.
It's interesting you say that because, without going into too much detail, as David mentioned earlier in the programme, that we have delivered a couple of pilot programmes which are linked to supporting people with respiratory illnesses by paying their fuel bills over the winter period. But that's, and certainly in my 7 years with SCARF, that is probably the most engagement, interaction as a charity we've had with the health services. It's always been, in my time certainly, historically, a very, very door to kind of push open. But there's, as you say, there's such a tie-in with people living in cold, damp, ill-heated properties and having chronic diseases or respiratory disease and continuous readmissions to hospitals, and the cost of that. It's always made me scratch my head that there's not been a greater degree of kind of collaboration and interaction up to now.
Yeah, I think to kind of echo that with Lawrence, when COVID struck, SCARF predominantly became a COVID advice centre, supporting shielding households. So I think for us, it was a national emergency. Things were done quicker and were done easier. So I think for us, it's like this really is like a housing national emergency, that a lot of the barriers, the red tapes and local authorities or NHS, we need to be working smarter and more effective, or ultimately the situation will just continue to deteriorate.
Absolutely. And it's also fascinating that you're working not only with householders, but also with small and medium-sized businesses and to reduce their energy demand, because we know that that's increasingly challenging in the current climate. So, getting that connection, understanding that this is a national emergency and an energy emergency and a housing emergency seems like a very good way to sort of tackle it. Gentlemen, I think what you're doing is incredible and very impressive. Wonderful to hear those stories. And Will, I understand you're involved in the board now, is that right? You sit on the board?
Yes, yeah, I mentioned it at the beginning. You obviously weren't listening to me.
I was listening. I'm just going back to it.
Oh, you were going back to it. I'm very good. You're so good at this, aren't you? Yes, I do. I feel really lucky to be a part of SCARF, because I think SCARF are brilliant, and hence why I wanted them on the podcast. But I also think that, and we have explored this in this podcast, what I see with SCARF just doesn't seem to be in the rest of, England and Wales predominantly. And what can we do, and how do we draw attention to that? Because we've all alluded and said quite rightly, this is a national emergency. We really need to do something about this quickly.
Definitely. Well, brilliant. Anyone listening, got any ideas, get in touch with us and tell us your fantastic schemes. If you've got a hotline to the government, tell them about SCARF. Thank you very much for joining us, David and Lawrence. Carry on the good work. Really fantastic to have a chat. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.